Cool. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Meredith Stull, and I am the GIS analyst in the Durham County Stormwater Department. I've been at Durham County for about 2 years now, and today I'm going to be talking about our stormwater utility fee and specifically the GIS methods that we use to implement this fee, what we do kind of year to year to manage the fee and everything like that. So I know that several local governments here in North Carolina already have stormwater utility fees, which is awesome. And so, or maybe you're currently working on implementing it or, testing the feasibility of that. So if you're in that process or you are a seasoned professional, we would love to hear from you at the end of the presentation and maybe offer any advice or best practices. If not, totally fine. But if you have any comments, we would love to hear from you shortly. All right, next slide. Okay. So as with many metro areas in North Carolina, Durham is bursting with development. The Research Triangle Park, otherwise known as RTP, is located in Durham County, which further contributes and influences the development in Durham. So with this rapid development comes the need for effective stormwater and erosion control strategies. Next slide. So Durham County, as all other municipalities and counties here in North Carolina, are subject to nutrient management regulations for nitrogen and phosphorus. And for us, we have two important drinking water watersheds. That would be Falls Lake and Jordan Lake. And each watershed has a different set of rules that we are expected to fund and enforce. So these regulations are expected to have significant financial and programmatic implications for Durham County. And so as a result, Durham County decided to implement a utility to help fund those efforts. Next slide. So for us, the stormwater utility fee is assessed per parcel for property owners based on square footage of impervious surfaces on the property. Homeowners or property owners receive this fee annually on their property tax bill. Impervious surfaces include rooftops, buildings, driveways, walkways, patios, sheds, pavement. I can go on, but that's essentially what we're looking for. And so the first year that this fee was implemented was 2020. And so due to COVID, we decided to initially bill owners at 1/3 of our original proposed rate, just due to everything going on at that time. We didn't want to provide an extra burden. Next slide. So to get started, this was kind of what we were looking for in terms of data. So when it comes to utility fees, we want to be respectful of our citizens and their funds. So it's extra important that our calculations are as accurate as possible. As a result, that means that the accuracy of the GIS data is super, super important. So we started off with building footprints. As kind of mentioned throughout today, there's a statewide buildings footprint effort going on, and City of Durham also has that. So that was a good place to start. And also what was super important was obtaining high quality aerial imagery. For this, we actually subscribe to a service called NearMap. There are plenty of aerial imagery services out there, but we did decide to take that extra step and pay for it because sometimes the publicly available imagery is maybe not quite as detailed as we need. Land use data was also used in addition to parcels and municipal boundaries. Next slide. Alrighty, so initially we did work with a consultant to help us develop the fee structure and to create that initial impervious data set. And so the consultant spent a couple of months drawing out all of our impervious areas by hand. But however, given all of the development in Durham, you know, 1 week goes by and your data set's already out of date. So this needs to be updated on a very regular basis. In Durham County, we only bill the properties that are outside of city limits. City of Durham has their own utility, so we don't want to bill people twice. So the first year when I was in charge of the utility fee, it was kind of a fire drill situation. I did everything manually because we didn't have time to kind of be proactive or think about automating this process. But I also thought, in addition to that it was valuable to lay eyes kind of on each or as many properties as possible, just out of respect for citizens, especially since this was a new thing and we thought they deserved that. Next slide. So when I got a chance to breathe after that first year, we really worked to try to automate this process as best as possible. So kind of the first step is figuring out which parcels are billable within the county. So in addition to development and construction that I've talked about, the other thing that happens, and I'm sure this happens where you are as well, is parcels get annexed either into the city limits or into other municipalities. And so we kind of had to figure out a way to keep track of that. And it wouldn't be efficient to go through each property one by one and check what happened to it in the past year. We had time for that. That would be great, but that's not feasible. So we received some quotes from AI providers to see if that would be available to us. But unfortunately, that's kind of just something that that's not in our budget. So what we do instead is we prioritize new construction. And so what we do is we collaborate with our planning department to get kind of a list of building permits that were issued throughout the year, and then also stormwater construction permits. That's kind of an easy way to just kind of easily capture or focus on what is new and what's coming in. So we also need to eliminate those parcels that are within other municipalities. Raleigh and Chapel Hill also overlap in Durham County a little bit. So in this model, we start with the raw parcels. First, what it does is it removes all parcels that belong to another jurisdiction. We also go ahead and remove vacant parcels, which for us, it's included in our tax data. And I think many parcel data sets reflect that as well. And then, like I said, we also start with our building permits and stormwater permits, join that to make, a comprehensive list of new development, and then join that with the parcels to kind of get this comprehensive list of what to focus on. Next slide. Okay. This is a glimpse at our current fee structure. So an ERU stands for an equivalent residential unit. And for us, one ERU is 4,300 square feet, and we charge currently $24 per ERU. We have 3 different tiers for residential properties, and then non-residential properties are just charged per ERU. Like I mentioned earlier, the first year the fee was implemented, we billed at 50% of what we're building now, and we plan to double it next year, and that's actually our just original proposed rate. Now that our residents are, more familiar with the fee. Next slide. So initially, this fee structure that I just talked about, it's, basic algebra or basic math, and it could be done in Excel if you want to. But we just decided to, let's automate this within GIS and make that a little bit more efficient. So basically what you do is once you have your impervious data set, make sure that it is accurately divided out by parcel. And what we do is we kind of as a rule, we just remove anything less than 400 square feet. And then if you've ever opened a parcel data set, sometimes, there could be like 100 fields in there. We're only focused on just a few. So I created a tool that kind of just filters that out automatically. And then it calculates the square footage, automatically assigns a bill class, ERU, and then calculates the fee. So at the end, we just run the model and send the output to our tax department, and it takes a matter of minutes. Next slide. All right, so out of respect for our ratepayers, we always try to tie everything we do back to our guiding principles in Durham County. So the first thing we always try to keep in mind is, the first priority is we do have to be in compliance with the watershed rules. Efficiency, we really want to be respectful of ratepayer dollars and be able to show them what we're doing and where our money is going. Resiliency, we want to make sure that we're thinking long term. We're not just reacting to problems. We are trying to do our part to address climate change and not just focus on short-term compliance. And then lastly, last but not least, environmental justice. We try to prioritize underserved and overburdened populations to help improve their quality of life and their watershed. And what we did is we used these principles to develop a rubric, and this rubric helps us allocate where our utility funds are going for projects in Durham County. Next slide. So this is all great to, just talk about, but we really want to take it a step further and show our county commissioners and our citizens that we are actually, taking action and advocating for them. So this is where GIS comes back into play. There are numerous GIS tools out there that can help identify environmental justice populations in your community. EPA has one, NCDEQ has one, and I believe Esri has one as well. I used to be a transportation planner before I went to Stormwater, so I really like the NCDOT demographics tool. So we use this tool to identify the environmental justice populations within Durham County, and then we use this data to target our outreach and education efforts that I'm going to talk about shortly. So as I just mentioned, we have a rubric that helps us allocate our funds, and that's what's shown here on the screen. There are definitely more categories than what is shown here, but this is just a snapshot. So after this rubric was developed, our consultants presented us with a list of potential projects in the county and how we can use our funds. And what we did was we gave each project a score based on this rubric. And we also sought feedback from our county commissioners and took their preferences into account. And then the demographic tool from DOT helped us provide data and justifications for each of the ratings in the rubric. Next. All right, complaints. So as you can imagine, we do receive quite a few inquiries from ratepayers. Many times they're just kind of looking for more information, wondering what this fee is, why is it here, why are we charging them? Other times they might need some help understanding, what is stormwater, and everybody does have stormwater on their property and things like that. And so right now, we are tracking all of their questions kind of just in a shared spreadsheet. And thankfully, I'm not the only one who has to respond to inquiries. So then what I do is at the beginning of the year, I add these complaints to the GIS parcel data. So I can just double check and make sure that their questions were addressed when the fee goes out the following year. Next slide, please. All right. So the first year we had the utility fee again. The appeals process was very informal. Ratepayers would request a review. If we found a problem, we would work with the tax department, change their bill. But we quickly realized this was not efficient. So it was hard to keep track of who was responding to whose rates changed and whose didn't. And so since I'm in charge of the impervious data set, it is my job to at least review all of the appeals to make sure that the GIS data accurately reflects what's going on at every property. So in order to track our appeals, I created a Survey 123 form for the public that can be accessed on our website. And this allows them to submit their bill information, contact information, and kind of a justification on why they would like to appeal their bill. And then on our end, we can easily kind of have this visual of, okay, who's requesting appeals and who's handling it and how is this being addressed and accounted for the future. And so, yeah, this makes it really easy to double check and that the updated bills are conveyed through the next billing cycle. We're still kind of testing this out and seeing what's working and what's not. So, but we do plan on implementing this for the next billing cycle. Next slide, please. All right. So when we first implemented the utility fee, we tried our best to educate the public about the utility and what is stormwater and why is this important. Many people are actually not familiar with the concept of stormwater management, let alone why we're charging them money. Since we implemented in 2020, we had the challenge of kind of getting out into the public since it was peak COVID time. And so we were not having in-person outreach events. We started off with mailers that went out to everyone with their property tax bill. But as you can imagine, maybe not everyone reads those mailers that they get. And that's fine. Same thing with social media. Social media is great to kind of get your information out there, but not everyone checks Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. So that's not necessarily the best way to communicate with everyone. Next slide. So we knew that using GIS to create stormwater education materials would be very effective. However, I am a one-woman show at Durham County in terms of GIS, and I just simply did not have the capacity to take on this aspect of the work. So so we thought that this would be a great opportunity to take on an intern. As I mentioned earlier, the first year, the billing cycle or the billing rate was at only 1/3 of the original proposed rate. So we also didn't really have the funds to hire an intern. So what we did was we partnered with NC Central University and applied for a grant. The grant's called the Environmental Enhancement Grant, and it comes from the North Carolina Department of Justice. NC Central is an HBCU in Durham, and I used to live next door to one of the provosts, and so we were chatting one day, and she just sent me a student. Well, we applied for the grant, and she sent me a student. So currently, the students from NCCU are building a story map to create an interactive map along with educational materials that will help show the public how the fee is calculated, why it is necessary, and where their money is going. This story map on the screen is a draft. And the students are, they're actually using this work as their master's project. There's a GIS master's program at NC Central. So this is kind of their capstone, if you will. And so they've been hard at work to get this up and running. Next slide. All right. So where's the money going? Here's a brief example of some of how we're using our funds. This is a bioretention facility located at a middle school in Durham. The students at the middle school are actually assisting with the implementation and the construction of this bioretention, and it will serve as a stormwater education opportunity for the students for the life of the facility, which is hopefully forever. Next slide. Okay, so
And team, if you could unmute Zoom for me, it looks like it may have muted.
can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I apologize if I accidentally muted myself. Okay, so I was talking about some of the challenges we faced in addition to technology challenges, apparently. So QAQC, the imagery that was used for the initial creation of our impervious data set was a few years old at the time it was created. And the resolution was low, so there were properties that really just do not reflect the accurate impervious calculation. These are a couple examples on the screen. You know, there's just a nice square on top of a building, but the driveway is missing, a shed in the back is missing, so this really isn't a fair assessment. And we're having a hard time kind of detecting this without, manually going through each property. So unfortunately, the only time we really notice it is when someone complains. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the land use data that we have access to is just not quite accurate to compare and build a tool around. And so for now, this remains kind of a reactive task, but we would love to kind of figure out a way to automate this process and just to help identify the properties that need attention ahead of time before someone comes to us and complains. Speaking of complaints, citizen complaints. So we do have tools in the works. Like I've showed, the survey 123 form and the story map, but we're kind of still working to improve that and streamline that process and make that a little bit easier. Public tools. So I'm definitely a believer that utility data should be public. But we've realized that we need to be very careful about the information that we share. Sometimes people try to kind of police their neighbors with this data. That's obviously not ideal. We're also concerned about data quality, as I mentioned, like this example on the screen. And so, yeah, we're kind of working through that hurdle and talking with other municipalities to see how they do it. City of Durham, they do share all of this publicly. So we've kind of been going to them for advice as well. And then we really want to separate the buildings from the pavement to have an up-to-date buildings footprint layer. There's always a demand for that. Stormwater is not the only department that could use that. So we also find that's actually like our most common question is people look at the square footage of their house and they say, oh, this is my impervious surface. And, we have to explain, oh, actually it's your driveway and your shed in the back and things like that. So we would love to be able to kind of show the differences between those materials. And again, find a way to do that without manually editing that data. Next slide. All right. So to summarize, we use GIS in several different ways to help manage our stormwater utility fee in Durham County. That's used in our impervious areas calculation, identifying environmental justice populations, our appeals process, and stormwater education efforts. So are there any questions? Yes.
So, it's been a long time since I've been to school on this stuff.
Yeah, no, you're good.
But, so I remember before that there had been talks or something where I had worked at the time, and there was like, do we count compacted gravel driveways as impervious surface or not, or what is their threshold between that? Has that popped up for y'all?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, to repeat the question, we were talking about different materials and what's considered impervious, like gravel. So, for us, we consider gravel impervious. That's something that comes up in appeals a lot. Compacted gravel, kind of degrades over time, and if there's grass growing out of your gravel, and you can show us that, we can maybe think about taking that out. But yeah, initially compacted gravel is considered impervious. Yeah, thank you for your question. Yes. Oh, yes. That is a great question. Okay, so the question was, how do you capture non-permitted impervious surface? So that is something that we really struggle with doing. And so kind of what we do now is we look at land use data that we have access to, and if there is a difference between the land use, so if it's saying that it's developed or impervious, and we haven't captured that in our impervious area, then that can be flagged as something to look at. But that comes up quite a bit, and it's really something that we're trying to work on automating. Again, that kind of goes back to QA/QC. And so yeah, we're always trying to troubleshoot that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. 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 And yeah, so yeah. So to repeat for the virtual audience, no, you're fine. No, you're fine. We're talking about potentially using, every 3 to 4 years going in and looking at those manually and maybe hiring that out. And yeah, I mean, I would say in addition to like unpermitted building additions, people add patios, and you don't necessarily need a permit to put in, like a 2x10 patio, or shed in backyard. And sometimes sheds are under trees, so that wouldn't be picked up in any land use or AI, situation. And then driveways as well, changing like from a dirt driveway to a gravel or gravel to pavement, that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. Yes. So we have we started off with our building footprints layer that existed before we started doing this. And we use Nearmap. That's a drone aerial imagery service. And what they do is they fly in the wintertime when the leaves are off the trees. And then yeah, we use that to manually trace. It's like a WMS aerial. Yes. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Hmm. No, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, we have, okay, sorry, for those of you on virtual, we were just talking about, Eagle View technology and how they have a tool that can help, um, the change finder, help find, how land use has changed from year to year. Um, and yes, we have looked into that. For us, it's not in our budget. It does cost extra money. And so we just couldn't justify that for now, but we can definitely explore that, or we are continuing to explore that. But yeah, thank you. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, so with our current IT agreement, we're not able to, oh, sorry. The question for the virtual, was the ArcGIS Pro AI, model. And, yeah, so to use that, you need multispectral imagery and, um, which kind of goes beyond just like the drone imagery that we um, pay for. And so with our budgetary restrictions, we're not able to get kind of the data needed for that ArcGIS Pro tool. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We definitely are looking forward to that data to come out to use that. But like I said, with the development in our area, by the time that drone flies over, it's already out of date. So, yeah, but thank you for that question. Yeah, Jackie. No, you're fine. You're fine. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. Okay, yeah. So the question was when we get an appeal, and they are uh suggesting that what we have is not, what is actually there on their property. So we sometimes we have them take pictures and just kind of verify that that's what their property looks like. There have been times where we have gone out in person just to verify. We wouldn't require them to get a survey. um but sometimes we can use permits or permit information to verify that, but if they don't get a permit, then we either just trust what they tell us or we go out in person. It actually rarely comes down to that though. Usually if we just explain like, oh, um, this is gravel, gravel is impervious. Or if they tell us, hey, actually this is dirt and not gravel, even though it looks like gravel, we usually just kind of take their word for it the first time. And then if they ask for it, we will go out and look at their property in person. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the question was, as a residential homeowner, if you were to kind of take it into your own hands and mitigate the stormwater on your own, we count that. And at this time, we don't, because it. I mean, in Durham, according to our ordinance, you do need a stormwater permit to try to implement stormwater control measures on your property. And so if you want that, we will come out and do it for you. But we can't really monitor that, and that would require an annual inspection. And so we have gotten that question before, especially with farmers and agriculture. They'll say, hey, I'm actually handling my own stormwater. But just in terms of fairness and equity, we kind of just have to continue to enforce the fee. But we would express our appreciation for your efforts, and thank you for that. A good question. These are all great questions. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So near map, okay. The question, we're answering Catherine Clifton's question about using, uh, near maps vector layers. And yes, near map loves to show us, those layers. But again, with the cost, like they're very expensive, especially for our, area. And, it is not in the budget to do that. And some municipalities may make that decision that it's worth it to pay for it, but then a lot of times what we've noticed is it really does take a set of human eyes to look at properties sometimes and see what is there. And so if you're paying for the vector data, and you're also having to duplicate that on your end, it was just something we couldn't justify. But those resources are available if that is in your budget and you can afford it. Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay. So does anyone here or yes. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yes, so our county has a land use data program, and I'm not in charge of that. Actually city of Durham does that, and they just go ahead and do it for the whole county. And they so we use that as a reference, but that's not updated yearly. I believe that's every few years. Yeah. Mhm. 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 Yeah, thank you. What is your name? Kevin. Kevin McLeod. Okay, yeah. So unfortunately, those who are with us virtually aren't necessarily getting every, bit of this discussion that we're having in person. But Kevin from Eagle View is offering, some very good advice and resources and different options for um, imagery and if you wanted to get a vendor to kind of help out with this process. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, like kind of while we're at it, like does anyone here have a utility fee and like, have like share in any of these struggles or have like, advice for um your fee and things that you do that you found successful? Okay. Yay, yay, tell me facts. Yeah. Yes. Hmm. 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 Yeah. Hmm. Yes. Yeah, yeah. So the question was from Hannah from City of Lenore, and we're talking about the funds coming from the utility fee, and we're encouraged not to use those funds to replace current programs already in place, but instead kind of add additional services for citizens instead of just to offer more. And yes, so it's really helped us with new development, especially in RTP. We get these huge campuses like pharmaceutical companies and just these huge undertakings for us. And so what we're kind of able to do is work with people coming in and making sure that they're or just providing additional reviews and services at like as the development is coming in instead of just kind of when it's completed. And then um, also we're able to kind of help with addressing drainage issues um, for our citizens if they need help with drainage on their property. We're able to quickly address illicit discharges. So if someone is illegally um, dumping something, we're kind of able to address that and react much faster than previously. And then also trying to improve our education and outreach efforts as well. So yeah, thank you for that question. Yes. So yes, it came from some regulations coming from NCDEQ. And so they kind of announced in 2018, 2019 that each watershed, we have these new set of rules for the municipalities to follow and make sure you're in compliance with. And in order to, make sure we were in compliance, um, we weren't able to do that with our current budget. And so we had to implement the fee just in order to stay in compliance with the state. And, of course, it wouldn't have been our first choice to send this out in the middle of 2020. But the implementation process started before COVID. And so it was just kind of unfortunate timing that it ended up happening at the same time. Yeah, thank you for your question. And thank you for typing the question in the chat when I forget to repeat it. Yeah. Well, this is great. Thank you for asking all these questions. I appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? Is there anything online? Oh, yes. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. 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 Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. 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 Oh yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be great. Thank you. Yeah, so just to briefly summarize for our virtual friends, um, Charlotte Mecklenburg has noticed that um, it it's very helpful for people to see, how the utility fee is impacting and benefiting their community, kind of by showing like, oh, you spent this money and you saved this, or you were able to help us do this, this, and this. And so, yeah, that's kind of also why we're working with our students from NC Central, and to kind of help them, or they're helping us kind of create those public resources for that. So, yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. 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 Yeah. Yeah, well, that's exactly how it started. Was we were getting just the same questions over and over and over. And we love engaging with our friends in Durham County. But it really is helpful to kind of have a resource to point them to, just to say like, hey, we have the answers to all your questions right here in this resource. Um, and yeah, story map is a great way to do that. Right, exactly. Right. People don't really want to go and read an FAQ on a government website. That's fine. Maybe I don't either. um, but yeah, if you look at this app that we made, or look at the story, people, if you say story map to, someone outside of the GIS world, they'd be like, what are you talking about? But it making it seem like fun and interactive and creative, like that really helps. Yeah, thank you. Okay, cool. So I'm going to stop talking now. But I thank you so much for this discussion.